It's that time again. It's Monday night Bible study. Chapter, verse, book, explanation, understanding. Can't beat it. It's the best way to learn. No preaching, just talk. Join me as we dive off into the deep end. And as always, welcome to my mania. Good evening. Welcome to the deepest parts of my mind. It's Monday night and I'm ready to get into the Bible. What are you guys doing? Hey, April. Good to see you. I feel like you just got here and already it's time to read. Can't be a bad thing. Where's your mom at tonight? She's in the background hiding. She hadn't got to the keyboard yet. Well, that's a good thing you just got here. I just got started. Good to see you too. You're looking lovely as always. Capital letters and whatnot. It's her birthday. I'll have to sing her happy birthday. Hey, Darlene. How you doing, birthday girl? I know it's coming. I know it's not today. You're still a birthday girl. Thank you, but not feeling great. Hey, Mom. I'm sorry you don't feel good. What's ailing you? I'm ready for some Bible, too. And maybe we can get your mind on something and you won't feel so bad afterwards. Me 3. Last week, we were just getting to the happenings of the end of Jesus' life. We were in the garden, and Jesus had asked Peter and a couple of his friends to pray with him. And, of course, they couldn't do it. They were falling asleep while he was out there sweating bullets. And so, without further ado, let's just get right on into it. I'm going to back up one verse. We're starting at 26:38 in Matthew. If you have your Bibles, flip to that page and let's get started. But I'm going to start on 26:37. And he took with him Peter and the two sons of Zebedee, that would be James and John, and began to be sorrowful and very heavy. Then saith he unto them, My soul is exceeding sorrowful, even unto death. Tarry ye here and watch with me. And he went a little farther, and fell on his face and prayed, saying, O my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as thou wilt. And what he's saying here, this is a natural human anxiety. What he's saying is there's so much that it has to come from this point forward that if it be possible, if there's another way to do it, let's do that. Nevertheless, whatever your wish is my command. That's what he's saying. It doesn't matter what I feel. It doesn't matter that I'm terrified right now. The only thing that matters is your will, and I'll get it done. That's what he's saying. And he cometh unto the disciples, and findeth them asleep, and saith unto Peter, What? Could ye not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray, that ye enter not into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. And he went away again the second time, and prayed, saying, O my Father, if this cup may not pass away from me, except I drink it, thy will be done. This is the second time he prays, and he says, if there's no other way, if there's nothing else I can do, then I will do your bidding. If that's the only way there is to do this thing, then I'll do it. And he came and found them asleep again, for their eyes were heavy. And he left them, and went away again, and prayed the third time, saying the same words. Then cometh he to his disciples, and saith unto them, Sleep on now, take your rest. Behold, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise. This is some time later after they've slept. Let us be going. Behold, he is at hand that doth betray me. And while he yet spake, lo, Judas, one of the 12, came, and with him a great multitude with swords and staves, those are long sticks, from the chief priests of the elders of the people. Now he that betrayed him gave them a sign, saying, Whomsoever I shall kiss, that same is he, hold him fast. And forthwith he came to Jesus, and said, Hail, Master, and kissed him. And Jesus said unto him, Friend, wherefore art thou come? Then came they, and laid hands on Jesus, and took him. And behold, one of them which were with Jesus stretched out his hand, drew his sword, and struck a servant of the high priest, and smote off his ear, cut his ear right off. And then said Jesus unto him, Put up again thy sword into its place. For all they that take the sword shall perish with the sword. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. Thinkest thou that I cannot now pray to my Father, and he shall presently give me more than 12 legions of angels? But how then shall the scriptures be fulfilled, that thus it must be? What he's saying is, you don't think I can talk to my Father and 12 legions of angels will come and kill everything around here? I could do that in a nanosecond. But the scriptures say that I must die for the sin of mankind, and it has to be fulfilled. And I'm the guy who's got to fulfill it. And now is the time to do it. So put your sword away and relax. This is going according to plan, as weird as it may feel. That's what he's saying. In that same hour said Jesus unto the multitude, Are ye come out as against a thief with swords and staves for to take me? I sat daily with you teaching in the temple, and you laid no hold on me then. But as this was done, that the scriptures of the prophets might be fulfilled, then all the disciples forsook him and fled. At that very time, everybody ran their separate ways and left Jesus in custody. I guess they figured they'd regroup and catch up with him later. And they that had laid hold on Jesus led him away to Caiaphas the high priest, where the scribes and the elders were assembled. They were there already in the middle of the night, waiting for him. But Peter followed him afar off unto the high priest's palace, and went in and sat with the servants to see the end. Now the chief priests and the elders and all the council sought false witness against Jesus to put him to death, but found none. Yea, though many false witnesses came, yet found they none. At the last came 2 false witnesses, and said, This fellow said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and build it in 3 days. And the high priest arose and said unto him, Answer thou nothing? What is it which these witnesses against thee? But Jesus held his peace. He didn't say anything. And the high priest answered and said unto him, I adjure thee by the living God, that thou tell us whether thou be the Christ, the Son of God. And Jesus saith unto them, Thou hast said. Nevertheless, I say unto you, hereafter shall ye see the Son of Man sitting on the right hand of power, and coming in the clouds of heaven. Ooh. Then the high priest rent his clothes, saying, He hath spoken blasphemy. That further need we have of what further need we have of witnesses? Behold, now ye have heard his blasphemy. They think that he's being blasphemous by saying that you'll see the Son of Man. Now, keep in mind what he said was very clever. He said, You said that I was the Christ. I didn't say it. You said it. But nevertheless, you'll see the Son of Man on the right hand of power coming in the clouds. And they consider that blasphemy. Yet he didn't actually say anything. They said it. So they're the ones that are blaspheming, not him. What think ye? They answered and said, He is guilty of death. Then did they spit in his face and buffeted him. That's hit him with the palms of their hands. And others smote him with the palms of their hands. Well, that's what they did. Saying, Prophesy unto us, thou Christ. Who is he that smote thee? In other words, somebody popped him in the back of the head and said, Tell us who just did that, if you're the Son of God. Now Peter sat without the palace, and a damsel came unto him, saying, Thou also was with Jesus of Galilee. But he denied before them all, saying, I know not what thou sayest. And when he was gone out into the porch, another maid saw him, and said unto them that were there, This fellow was also with Jesus of Nazareth. Again he denied with an oath, saying, I do not know the man. I swear I don't know him. And after a while came unto him, they stood by, and said unto Peter, Surely thou also art of them, for thy speech betrayeth thee. Then began he to curse and swear, saying, I know not the man. And immediately the cock crowed. That was the thing that Jesus had told him. And he remembered it. And when Peter remembered the words of Jesus, which said unto him, Before the cock crows, thou shalt deny me thrice. And he went out and wept bitterly. I'm sure that broke his heart. That coward who was hiding amongst the women, pretending not to be who he was. I'm sure it destroyed him to know that Jesus was correct and that he would betray him 3 times before the sun rose the next morning, after he was promising him with all of his heart that he would die before he betrayed Christ. Christ knew the heart of a man. Even though the man's words said one thing, he knew what the man's spirit would do instead. And when the morning was come, all the chief priests and elders of the people took counsel against Jesus to put him to death. And when they had bound him, they led him away and delivered him unto Pontius Pilate, the governor. Then Judas, which had betrayed him, when he saw that he was condemned, repented himself, and brought again the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and elders, saying, I have sinned, and that I have betrayed the innocent blood. And they said, What is that to us? See thou to that. In other words, sounds like a personal problem. It doesn't involve us. We paid a price. You gave us what we paid for. Any emotional problems you have with it is your own. Don't come to us with it. And he cast down the pieces of silver in the temple and departed and went and hanged himself. You see, Judas thought, just so you know that Judas isn't the devil, Judas thought that Jesus was Christ. But he thought, like the Jews think, that Christ was a mighty warrior that was coming to wage war and tear down the Roman emperors and, reclaim Israel for all of them. He thought he was coming to wage war. But that's not what Jesus came for. And Judas could not get that in his head. He could not understand that Jesus had no intentions of fighting, that his fight was a heavenly battle that had nothing to do with what was happening on earth at this very moment. Whereas Judas, like many other people, were destitute and under the thumb of the Roman army, and they desperately wanted to revolt and regain control of their lives. So what he thought was, if he turned Jesus in, then Jesus would have no choice but to hurry up and start the fight and get it going. He didn't think for a second that they were going to kill him. He didn't think for a second that the high priests had that kind of power. He didn't think for a second that Jesus would allow himself to be killed. He thought that by betraying Jesus, he was actually hurrying along the process, doing his part to get it going. And once he realized what he had done, that he betrayed his only friend unto death, it was too much for him to handle, and he went straight to the potter's field and hung himself, or to Gehenna, where the trash heap is. That part's not biblical. I think I read that in a history book somewhere. Anyway, and the chief priests took the silver pieces and said, It is not lawful for to put them into the treasury, because it's the price of blood. So they can't keep the money. So they got smart and had a workaround. So they took counsel and bought with them the potter's field to bury strangers in. So they acquired some more land with the money. So workaround. They can't keep the money, but they can profit off of it in other ways. Because they're charging people to be buried in the potter's field. Wherefore that field was called the field of blood unto this day. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremy the prophet, saying, And they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of him that was valued, whom they of the children of Israel did value, and gave them for a potter's field, as the Lord's appointed me. And Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, saying, Art thou the king of the Jews? And Jesus said to him, same thing he said to Caiaphas, Thou sayest. You said it, not me. I never called myself the king of the Jews. You called me that. And when he was accused of the chief priests and elders, he answered nothing. He kept his mouth shut. He didn't say a word. He didn't whimper. He didn't stammer. He wasn't afraid. He just sat there in silence. Then said Pilate unto him, Hearest thou not how many things they witness against thee? Don't you hear what they're saying about you, boy? Don't you have anything to say? Are you not going to try to defend yourself? And he answered him, To never a word, insomuch that the governor marveled greatly. He didn't say a word, no matter how much the governor pestered him, no matter how much he questioned him, no matter how much he grilled him and tried to trick him into saying things. He just didn't speak. He had nothing to say because he wasn't actually guilty of anything. He didn't do anything wrong, nothing at all. Every word that was said against him was said in vain. It was a false witness against him. Not one thing did he actually do, so he had nothing to confess. So he didn't confess anything. Now, if Pontius Pilate asked him a direct question, and it was a question he hadn't already answered, he would answer it. But other than that, he kept his mouth shut. Talk about a man. I wouldn't have had the strength to do that. I know that sitting here right now that I couldn't do it. And I hadn't even got to the part where they started beating me yet. Think about that. Now, at that feast, the governor was wont to release unto the people a prisoner whom they would. And what this is saying is that it is customary at that particular time of the year they'd have a feast. And it was customary for the governor to release a prisoner whomever the people chose. Like he'd put two up and say, which one do you want? And they'd pick one and he'd release that prisoner. And they had then a notable prisoner named Barabbas. Interestingly enough, the word Barabbas means son of the Father. It's the same as Jesus, which means the anointed one from the Father, or the Son of God. Wherefore, when they were gathered together, Pilate said unto them, Whom will ye that I release unto you, Barabbas or Jesus, which is called Christ? For he knew that for envy they had delivered him. He knew that the Jews were jealous of Jesus, and Pontius didn't really want to crucify Jesus. He didn't want to have anything to do with this because he knew Jesus was innocent, and because of his wife who followed Jesus, he was kind of a believer. He kind of bought into what Jesus was saying. His wife followed Jesus. I don't know if that's biblical or not. I read that somewhere, probably in Josephus. Josephus was a historian in Rome who wrote about these events. When he was set down on the judgment seat, his wife sent unto him, saying, Have thou nothing to do with that just man? Well, I guess there it is right there. For I have suffered many things this day in a dream because of him. So apparently his wife was having dreams because of Jesus, and she knew that he was just. But the chief priests and elders persuaded the multitude that they should ask Barabbas and destroy Jesus. In other words, they baited the crowd. The governor answered and said unto them, Whether of the twain will ye that I release unto you? And they said, Barabbas, Barabbas, Barabbas. Pilate saith unto them, What shall I do then with Jesus, which is called Christ? He's reminding them every time he says his name. Jesus, who is the anointed one, what should I do with him? And they all said unto him, Let him be crucified. And the governor said, Why? What evil hath he done? But they cried out the more, saying, Let him be crucified. And when Pilate saw that he could prevail nothing, but that rather a tumult was made. What that means is, in case you don't know what the word tumult means, which I didn't for a long time, it means that the crowd was inspired into frenzy. They were amped up, they were hyped up by the chief priests who were in the background whispering things to them and yelling out above their heads and, whipping the crowd into a frenzy. And so there was a tumult amongst the crowd, and he saw it and realized that the crowd was not going to be satisfied until somebody was killed. When he saw that the tumult was made, he took water and washed his hands before the multitude, saying, I am innocent of the blood of this just person. See ye to it. You want him dead? You kill him. I'm not doing it. I'm done. You're not going to burn my soul because of this man. He didn't do anything wrong, and I can tell he didn't do anything wrong. So Pontius Pilate was not a bad guy, contrary to popular belief. And if you read some other history, you might be told that Pilate was a bad guy or that he was an evil person or whatever. And he may have been a hard governor, but he was not an unjust man. He did see that Jesus was innocent. Then answered all the people and said, His blood be on us and on our children. Then released he Barabbas unto them, who, by the way, was guilty of murder several times over, which is why he was in jail. So they let this murderer free and kept Jesus, whom was only guilty of healing people and being good. And when he had scourged Jesus, he delivered him to be crucified. And what scourged means is they made him hold himself up on a plank, and they commenced to beating him with a whip that had several lashes on it and hooks on the end of those lashes. And it would pierce the skin and rip flesh. You wouldn't die from it, but you'd have a bad couple of weeks if you got scourged. At the very least, you might get an infection and die from an infection. But if you managed to survive healing up, you'd be fine, and your punishment would be over in a day. But this particular scourging went on a little longer and a little worse than it was supposed to. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the common hall, gathered unto him the whole band of soldiers. They stripped him, put on him a scarlet robe, which is purple. And when they had platted a crown of thorns, they put it upon his head, and a reed in his right hand. And they bowed the knee before him and mocked him, saying, Hail, King of the Jews! And they spit upon him, and took the reed and smote him about the head. They hit him on the head with a stick against that crown of thorns that was poking into his skull cap. I imagine he was in quite a lot of pain. And after that, they had mocked him. They took the robe off of him and put his own raiment on him and led him away to crucify him. And as they came out, they found a man of Cyrene, Simon by name. Him they compelled to bear his cross. The reason is Simon bearing Jesus' cross was because it was so heavy that Jesus could barely carry it. It was more than he could bear. After being beaten and scourged and all the other things they did to him, and then have to tote that heavy cross across town. If you've ever seen the layout of Jerusalem and you know about where Golgotha is, you know that it's about 4 miles from the place where they were, the high priest, uphill to where this Golgotha is. So he had quite the journey toting that big heavy tree, basically. So they got this big guy from Cyrene, big heavy gaudy dude named Simon, to tote it for him, or to help him tote it. And when they were come unto a place called Golgotha, that is to say, a place of the skull, meaning the side of the mountain kind of resembled a human skull. It had indentions in it that kind of looked like eye sockets, and the shape of it was such that it kind of looked like a skull. They gave him vinegar to drink mingled with gall. Now this is interesting, because vinegar mingled with gall produces a kind of an opiate effect. It numbs you. So what they were giving him was a poor man's wine. It's cheap. It's easy to make. Gall is like a cat o' nine tails in its texture. You ever seen one of those things? It looks like a hot dog on a stick. It's kind of got that texture to it. And they mix it together, and whatever produces from that plant will numb the body a little bit. So they were trying to give him some ease, but he didn't want to take it. They gave him vinegar to drink mingled with gall, and when he had tasted thereof, he would not drink, meaning he wouldn't taste of it. He wouldn't have it. He was going to take that pain all the way, just like it was intended. And when they crucified him, they parted his garments, casting lots. They ripped his clothes into 3 pieces, and then they gambled on it to see who would get the bigger piece, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophet. They parted my garments among them, and upon my vesture did they cast lots. This was spoken 2,000 years before this event took place. 2,000 years before Jesus was born, a man spoke all of the things that took place on this day, down to the letter, every detail, and got it all right. Think about that. And sitting down, they watched him there, and set up over his head his accusation written, "This is Jesus, King of the Jews," or INRI in Greek, which is a plaque that they put above his head. Then were there two thieves crucified with him, one on the right hand and another on the left. And they that passed by reviled him, wagging their heads, and saying, "Thou that destroyest the temple and buildest it in 3 days, save thyself. If thou be the Son of God, come down from that cross. If you are who you say you are, come on down. You ain't got to stay up there." But he did. He did have to stay up there because he was the sacrificial lamb. This is the sacrifice that God was talking about when he spoke to Abraham and told Abraham to kill his only son. Of course, he wouldn't let him do it. He just wanted to know that he was willing, because what he had already planned to do, that was back in Genesis. He had already planned to give up his son, his only son, to be the lamb, the sacrifice for all sins, for all man, for all time. But he wanted to know that man was at least worthy of that gift. So he asked Abraham, "Crucify your only son for me." And without hesitation, Abraham complied. He didn't like it. He didn't want to do it. He had no intentions of doing it, except that it be told by God that he should. And so he did. And God stopped him, and there he provided a lamb in the bushes to be sacrificed for that moment as a template for what he's doing now. And what he's doing now is sacrificing his perfect, spotless, blameless, blemishless lamb for the iniquities of all mankind. So you're being bought and paid for right here by this ransom. And so you were. Likewise, also the chief priests, mocking him with the scribes and elders, said, "He saved others, himself he cannot save. If he be the King of Israel, let him now come down from the cross, and we will believe him. Doesn't matter how many dead people he brought back to life, or how many sick people he healed, or how many cripples he made walk, how many blind people he made see, how many people he fed with 7 fish and 4 loaves, whatever it was, whatever the number was. Didn't matter about any of that. Come down off that cross and we'll believe you." Sheer hubris. He trusted God. Let him deliver him now, if he will have him, for he said, "I am the Son of Man." The thieves also, which were crucified with him, cast the same in his teeth. Did I miss something? Nope, that's what it says. The thieves also, which were crucified with him, cast the same in his teeth. I guess what that means is they said the same things amongst themselves, that they trust God and let the Son of Man deliver him if he will. That's the only thing I can see there. Cast the same in his teeth, meaning they spoke through their teeth, I would imagine. Now, in the 6th hour, from the 6th hour, there was darkness over all the land unto the 9th hour. This is about 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, somewhere in that area, on till about 8 or 9 o'clock. It shouldn't have been dark then, that's what I'm saying, but it was dark. And about the 9th hour, Jesus cried with a loud voice, saying, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani." That is to say, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" Now, I want to pause right here because this is very important. You need to understand, get it in your thick head right now, that Jesus is not crying to God for mercy. He's not asking God why he's not there with him. What he's doing is teaching from Psalms. And if you'll read Psalms, you'll find out that David said those exact same words in a prophecy concerning this very event. And what Jesus is saying is this is the last line of that prophecy. And if you'll read it, it is the last line. And shortly thereafter, he says, "It is finished." It being the prophecy that he's teaching about. So his very last breath was spent teaching the prophecy of Psalms. That's not what I'd be doing in my last breath, but that's what he did. He was not crying for mercy. He didn't whimper one bit. He took it like a man. But what he did with his last breath was say a passage from Psalms so that you understood, all those who could see it, that this is the end of that prophecy, and that prophecy is now finished, it's complete. Some of them that stood there, when they heard it, said, "This man calleth for Elias." This man is crying for mercy and calling Elias the prophet. Others that stood there understood what he meant. And straightway one of them ran and took a sponge and filled it with vinegar and put it on a reed and gave him to drink. The rest said, "Let be. Let us see whether Elias will come and save him." And Jesus, when he had cried again with a loud voice, yielded up the ghost. And behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain from top to bottom, not from bottom to top. That's important. And the earth did quake, and the rocks rent. There was a split that came out from the inside of that cross. There's a little hole that they beat into the ground for the cross to sit in. It's about 2 foot deep. And from that spot, a crack split out from the rocks that went straight to the temple, and the veil that covered the holiest of holies where the Ark of the Covenant would sit, which is the mercy seat on which God would sit, rent from top to bottom and fell. Cracked the ground straight up to the temple and ripped the veil. That was a very supernatural earthquake. And the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints arose and came out of the graves after his resurrection, and went into the holy city and appeared unto many. The dead got up and walked around for a little while. This is a one-time event. We're not talking about zombies here. This is a spiritual happening. Understand that before Jesus went into Abraham's bosom, when you died, you did not go to heaven. You went to Abraham's bosom, which is a holding place in hell, so to speak. It's like a waiting room, and there you would wait until Judgment Day. When Jesus died, a lot of those spirits came up and were on the earth, and many people saw them, and it freaked a lot of people out, I would imagine. This is a one-time event. It'll never happen again. It only happened then, and it was done to signify that the Son of Man had died. A lot of things occurred on that day, including earthquakes and a dark period, and the dead walking, and the voice of God coming from heaven. Now, when the centurion, which is like a knight, a Roman knight, a guy with armor and a helmet and a staff with a spear and a little pointy stick, when the centurion and they that were with him watched Jesus, saw the earthquake and those things that were done, they feared greatly, saying, "Truly, this was the Son of God." It terrified them because they saw what was really going on here. And many women were there beholding afar off, which followed Jesus from Galilee, ministering unto him, among which was Mary Magdalene, and Mary the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of the Zebedee children. Also, Jesus' mother was among them. And when the evening was come, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who also himself was Jesus' disciple. He was also Jesus' uncle, and a lot of people don't realize that because it doesn't specifically mention it. But Joseph of Arimathea was the brother-in-law of Mary, which would make him Jesus' uncle. He went to Pilate and begged for the body of Jesus, and then Pilate commanded the body be delivered. And when Joseph had taken the body, he wrapped it in a clean linen cloth and laid it in his own new tomb, which he had hewn out of the rock. And he rolled a great stone to the door of the sepulchre and departed. Now you have to understand that this day that Jesus was crucified was Passover, and it just became evening, and it had been dark for about 3 hours already, which it shouldn't have been dark. But you see, at sundown is when Passover starts. That's the Jewish way. They start at sundown and they go till sundown again. Well, at sundown, they can no longer put their hands on a dead body, which is why they couldn't outright prepare Jesus for burial. They put him in the tomb unprepared. They didn't wash him. They didn't shave him. They didn't put the proper burial linens on him. They just covered him up and put him in the tomb and covered it. And they said, we'll come back in 3 days and finish, because it'd take 3 days for Passover to finish. And there was Mary Magdalene and the other Mary sitting over against the sepulchre. Now the next day that followed the day of preparation, the chief priests and Pharisees came together unto Pilate, saying, Sir, we remember that the deceiver said, whilst he was yet alive, after 3 days I will rise again. Command therefore that the sepulchre be made sure until the 3rd day, lest his disciples come by night and steal him away, and say unto the people, He is risen from the dead. So the last error shall be worse than the first. See, they thought that the disciples would come take his body when nobody was looking and claim that he had rose from the dead. And they wanted to make sure, so they asked Pontius Pilate to put some guards out there and to sure it up, meaning put a chain across the stone so that nobody could get into the temple until the 3rd day, because if they were allowed to believe that, then their wrath would be worse than it is now. They were worried about a revolt. Pilate said unto them, Ye have a watch, go your way. Make it as sure as you can. So that they went and made the sepulchre sure, sealing the stone and setting a watch. And sealing the stone there's a Roman way to do this. They put 3 pegs in the stone, one on each side and one in the middle. And then they hang a chain across it, wrap it around, and then take it and attach it to the other side. Now this is a Roman seal, and then they put hot wax on the edges so that you can tell if it's been tampered with. It's just a way of doing that so that you can see if anybody's tried to bother it or break the seal. And then they put 3 or 4 guards out there to watch it just to make sure. In the end of the Sabbath, which is Saturday, he was crucified on Friday, and then the next day was Saturday, which is when this occurred. And then at the end of that day, as it began to dawn towards the 1st day of the week, came Mary Magdalene and the other Mary to see the sepulchre. And behold, there was a great earthquake, for the angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone from the door and sat upon it. His countenance was like lightning, and his raiment white as snow. And for fear of him the keepers did shake, and became as dead men. They went catatonic. The 3 people that were watching, the keepers, the people who were guarding, they did not expect that to happen. And the angel answered and said unto the women, Fear not ye, for I know that ye seek Jesus, which was crucified. He is not here, for he is risen, as he said. Come, see the place where the Lord lay. And go quickly and tell his disciples that he is risen from the dead, and behold, he goeth before you into Galilee. There shall ye see him. Lo, I have told you. Now, you may wonder who this angel is, whose countenance is like lightning and his raiment white as snow. You might think this is God himself, It's not. It's Gabriel, the archangel. And Gabriel is the one who does the talking for God. God doesn't have a voice like we have. So anytime you hear the voice of God, it's Gabriel, the archangel, doing the talking. He has the face of God. And he went to tell these women to go tell the other disciples that Jesus is already on his way to Galilee. He'll be there when you get there, and you'll see him there. I've spoken. And they departed quickly from the sepulchre with fear and great joy, and did run to bring the disciples the word. And as they went to tell his disciples, behold, Jesus met them in the road, right there as they were running, saying, All hail! And they came and held him by the feet and worshipped him. Then said Jesus unto them, Be not afraid. Go tell my brethren that they go into Galilee, and there shall they see me. And you see, the disciples are hiding right now. They're all hid out somewhere. But they need to go into Galilee, where Jesus is headed. Now when they were going, behold, some of the watch came into the city, and showed unto the chief priests all the things that were done. And when they were assembled with the elders, and had taken counsel, they gave large money unto the soldiers, saying, Say ye, his disciples came by night, and stole him away while we slept. They paid the soldiers to lie and say that the disciples came and took him, when they know good and well that they saw an angel roll that stone away and sit upon it, staring at them like, go ahead, do something. And they fell catatonic. They were so afraid they couldn't move. And if this come to the governor's ears, we will persuade him and secure you. You cover us and we'll cover you. That's what they're saying. So they took the money and did as they were taught. And this saying is commonly reported among the Jews unto this day. Then the 11 disciples went away into Galilee, into a mountain where Jesus had appointed them. And when they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. And Jesus came and spake unto them, saying, All power is given unto me in heaven and in earth. Go ye therefore, and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I have commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even unto the end of the world. Amen. And that, my friends, is the end of the book of Matthew. And what a fantastic book that was. Jesus, when he was put into that tomb, and they put the stone in front of it, and then sealed it so that no man could enter it, and then put guards before the door to make sure that nobody came and bothered it. While he was in there, his body was transfigured, like it was on the mountain when he went up and spoke to Moses and Elias. He was transfigured then as well, meaning he left his flesh body and became spirit. And in that tomb, the same thing occurred, only he went down into Abraham's bosom for those 3 days. And there he ministered to the souls that didn't have a chance to be accepted of Christ or believe in Christ. And he released all the spirits that were there, sending them all to heaven. And then he was on his way back to earth. Took 3 days for that to occur, which is the same 3 days that Jonah spent in the whale's belly. It's the same 3 days that you'll find repeated several times in the Bible as a template or as a type for what occurred this day. So that was Jesus's purpose for death, is to cover all sins, including the sins before him. So it's a proactive covering of all sins. He has paid the ransom. If this were a courthouse, the judge would have no option but to set you free because someone has paid your bail, so to speak. Now, when it come to pass that he came back to life on the third day, he was not in his earthly body. He was in his spiritual body, which is why at first the disciples didn't recognize him. And we'll get into that in the next books to come. All of the details weren't given in this book that occurred on after the resurrection. Only the cliff notes that he went into Galilee and he spoke to everybody. But more happened during that time, and we'll get into that in the next few books. One of the things that happened is that he met with the disciples on the road and spoke with them for a while and even ate dinner with them, and they didn't recognize him. They didn't know who they were talking to. And it wasn't until he broke bread at the dinner table that they began to notice the similarities between this stranger and Christ, because nobody broke bread like he did. He was very particular about the way he did that. And that's the only time that they recognized him. They'd been with him all day. And then at dinner, he broke bread a certain way and said a certain prayer, and they recognized it and knew that they were in the presence of Christ. I would imagine he was probably freshly shaven. He was probably clean as a whistle. He probably had a different countenance about him, because your spiritual body is the perfection of your flesh body. It's an outward. If you look into your mind and imagine how you look, and then look in the mirror and you're startled at how old and wrinkled you are, but that image in your mind is probably what your spirit looks like in reality. I don't know that to be true. I just assume that because, that seems to be the way it would be. But we're going to get into the details in the next books, the next 3 books, Mark, Luke, and John, about what Jesus did. All these books are not all as long as Matthew was. Matthew laid the foundation, and the rest of them expound on what was said in Matthew. But we'll get through them, one book at a time. But I think that's a good stopping place. If you would please, take a moment to press the like, subscribe, and share button. Hit the bell notification icon so you'll know when I'm going to be online and what new videos are coming out. Follow the links in the description below. Please leave a comment. Let me know what you're thinking. Ask me a question or give me your version of events or whatever you think I got right or wrong. Let me know what's in your mind. If you would like to support this ministry, and if we've helped you and you consider us to keep helping you, go to paypal.me/JakeJohnsonBand and leave a donation of any kind or size. It doesn't matter. A love offering helps. Anything you can do to help us would be gratefully appreciated. And we thank you for hanging out with us, and we're going to be doing this every Monday, so prepare yourselves. We're going to get deep. We're going to jump off into the deep end. In fact, I've decided to name this portion of the podcast The Deep End, just for that reason. So welcome to the deep end. And with that, I'll take any questions you may have or comments or statements. Let me get caught up on the chat. Ba-ba-ba-ba, I'm hoarse. Doing great. Ready for some Bible study. Me 3. Hope you feel better, baby. Oh, that's sweet. Oh, yes, that's the spirit. Thanks, y'all. Just aching from all the falling yesterday. You shouldn't have fell. You should, wear pads or something. Same, Jake. I need to work in holding my tongue as well. Yeah. Hey, amen. What's up, Kev? Amen, Jake. Psalms. That's right. Mama, I wanted to know what you'd like to do tomorrow. I gotta work, but after we can make plans to do something. Celebrate your birthday, babies. I'll text you after this, okay? Wow, wasn't that in the book of Enoch? Probably. There are some things in the book of Enoch, but you have to understand the book of Enoch is not biblical. It's extra biblical, meaning that there are a lot of things in there that agree with the scriptures. And if it agrees with it, it's okay to keep it and use it to expound your knowledge. If it disagrees with it, you have to put that on a shelf, because this book was not included in the Bible for a reason. I don't know what that reason was, if it was man or God, but for whatever reason, it's not there now. So it's a good book to read, but it is not biblical, so you can't rely on it for biblical knowledge. But there are a lot of interesting things in the book of Enoch, and it was written at the same time by the same people. Yes, I love it. Great book. One of my favorites, too. It's awesome. The Deep End. That's a great one, Jake. Thank you. We have a slick tile floor. You, Jake, that is what is up. That's right. Well, I'm only partially up. Semi-chubbed. As I had to stop at a certain point. I didn't want to go in until I got through the King James. Yeah, I can understand why. Enoch was Noah's grandfather and was written before the flood occurred. That is correct. Enoch was seventh from Adam. There were 7 people born, and then Enoch was born from Adam in the lineage. So a few thousand years after Adam was born. Enoch may have even known Adam. I don't know. Or a few hundred years, rather, not thousands. It's really scary. It's not scary. It just delves into the details of the angels and what their job titles were and some of their names and some of their descriptions. It's scary in that you didn't understand that beforehand, and that you realize when you read the book of Enoch, you begin to realize that there's more going on in the ethereal world than you assumed beforehand. There's a lot more detail involved in the outer world than there is known in the Bible. And I assume the reason it wasn't included in the Bible is because it was too wooey. There's too much otherworldly stuff in it. It doesn't pertain to what's going on right here, right now, which is why I think the Bible was kept to the details it has, because it's just telling the story of what's going on right here and why. It doesn't talk about heaven very much. It doesn't talk about hell very much. It doesn't talk about what happened before Adam very much. It just kind of gives the details of what's happening right now. It's like a handbook, like a guide. A little bit history book, a little bit rule book, a little bit, But there are many, many books that were written by the same people who wrote the Bible in the same time periods about the same subjects that cover many things the Bible does not cover. That includes the book of Jasher, the book of Adam and Eve, the book of Thomas, on and on and on. There's lots and lots of books. I can't think of them all right now. The book of Enoch. But they're good to read, but you have to understand they're not the Bible. So you can't rely on them as biblical text. You can't build your faith on it. You can use it to fortify your own knowledge or to further understand a concept that you grasped barely before, but you cannot rely on it as biblical knowledge. You can't build your faith on it. So just keep that in mind when you read those books, that they're good for knowledge, but they're not Bible. Yeah, it was getting to the point I was seeing more. It scared me. Yeah, I understand. Where is the book of Enoch, if not in the Bible, just at the bookstore? I don't know if you can buy it at the bookstore or not. You can download digital copies of it, but you got to be careful of where you get it, because digital copies can be altered quite easily. So you want to get it from a reputable source, like the Gutenberg Project would be a good place you could get it. If you'd like, I could find my copy and send it to you. And I imagine there's a bookstore somewhere that has it. Do a Google search and see if it comes up. You might can get it off of Amazon or something like that. Again, it's a good book, but it's not biblical. So you can read it and enjoy it and further understand the role of the angels and the things that they did wrong, because it talks about some of that too. Talks about the fallen angels a little. Just beware, you're getting into a realm of understanding that will blow your mind. It's in YouTube, and you can get it from the store. But I was watching it on YouTube. Yeah, I think there's people that read it on YouTube. You can get those videos for free and just listen to somebody read it to you. No, that's okay. I hate to read anyway. I do too, oddly enough. Yes, you can. Enoch spoke about the Watchers. Watchers is just another word for fallen angels. I have a copy somewhere. You can get it on Amazon. It's difficult to read and understand. It is a little difficult. He speaks a little bit more Englishy than the other ones do. The translation is a little bit more proper and older. Have you ever heard of the Pale White Horse? Yes, it definitely did blow mine. I've heard of all four horses. The pale horse, the red horse, the black horse, and the other horse. If not biblical, don't need to read it. Well, that's true, you don't need to read it. You don't need to understand any of that. But if you're like me and you need to understand more, you can find it. That's all I'm saying. Obviously, if God intended you to read it, he would have included it in the Bible. But he didn't. So, for whatever reason, it was there for a little while. It was there up until 1066 at the Council of Nicaea when they agreed to take it out because it got too deep into the angels. It read too much like science fiction to them. What are those? And the meaning of the horse I meant. Each horse signifies a meaning. The dark horse being the Antichrist, the end of the world. The red horse signifies a battle with the red, or Russia, or China, one of the two. I don't remember all the details. Wait till we get to Revelations and I'll cover all that. Right now I'm in gospel mode, so it's kind of hard for me to remember all the details. But each horse has a meaning, each rider has a meaning and a job, and they all set out to enact their portion of the end of the world. The four horsemen are the bringers of the end of the world. It's a metaphor, it's not real horsemen, but also each horse has a name, and the dark horse's name, oddly enough, was Barak. Just thought that you'd like to know that. That's what I think too. If it's not Bible, don't need it. That's true. The four horses of the apocalypse. That's correct. Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take it towards the end. That's all right. No problem. I got you. Wow. The red and black horse together is Georgia Bulldog horse team. They are led by a white bulldog named UGA. I hear you. Well, it's not lost on me that Donald Trump is about to win re-election. And if after he serves this term, he actually takes a third term like he was joking that he would, or if one of his children runs for president and wins, that would be 3 Trumps in a row. And I've always thought that was funny, just on its face, that there's 3 Trumps, as like right on the nose. And God does have a sense of humor, so that I wouldn't put it past him. That's all I'm saying. But in all truth, there are many things that occur towards the end. You've got bowls of wrath. You've got seals that need to be broken. You've got angels with trumpets that need to go out and toot their trump certain amounts of times to signify the coming of certain things. And during all this time, events are occurring. Some of those trumps and seals have already occurred, by the way. the end has been happening for about 1,000 years now. It's not a thing that's going to happen in one day. It's not going to be fast. You won't be able to see it start and end. You're in the middle of it right now. The earth is travailing in labor pains as we speak. That's what all the hurricanes and wildfires and earthquakes are about. That's the travailing of the earth in her labor pains. And she's about to give birth to a whole new existence. And that is what happens after the destruction of the earth. God's going to rebuild this earth the way he built it the first time, perfect and to be inhabited. And all the souls will be on this planet. Heaven will be on this planet. This planet was created to house heaven. This is the center of the universe. All things revolve around this place. This place is special. The city of Jerusalem is coming here, the new city. How it's coming, I don't know. It kind of sounds like a spaceship to me. It's coming from space and it'll land here. But where it's coming from is the third heaven, where God is presently. Wherever God is, that's where heaven is. So if he takes a trip, it's like Air Force One. Wherever he goes, whatever plane he's on, that's Air Force One. So whatever place God is, that becomes heaven. But he's coming here. And at some point in the future, there will be a new city built in Jerusalem, and God will seat and reign from that place. And all the inhabitants of the earth will come to that place on a weekly or daily basis to be fed. There will be no more sunlight because the light will come from Christ himself. There will be no more need for food. There will be no more need for water, so there won't be any more oceans. There'll be all land. The whole earth will be land, except the river that comes out the new city. I'm sure there'll be bodies of water, but it won't be oceans because the earth originally didn't have oceans. It had seas, but it didn't have oceans. Yes, heaven comes here. The stars fall. And heaven is rent open. What you see up there won't be there anymore. God only knows what will be there, but it won't be what you see now. All that's coming down, believe it or not. As hard as it is to picture that, it is going to happen. How it's going to happen, I don't know. But all that's coming down. That's not going to be up there anymore. That all was put there for our benefit. So, it's not going to happen tomorrow, that's what I'm saying. You got time. Use that time wisely. Sports update. Giants 14 and Bucks 6 at half. Go Bucks. Da-da-da-da-da-da. It's the Hyper Bowl. That's really amazing. I bet people but us are the only ones that realize that right now. I remember you saying that in another podcast. I don't know if we're the only people that realize it or not. That is interesting. And I don't think a lot of people know. But some people know. Surely, I can't be the only person that gets it. Talking about the three Trumps. Yeah. I don't know if that's true or not. I just think it's funny that that's there, that his name is actually Trump, and that that's supposed to happen in the future, and it seems to be happening. It's just humorous to me. I don't think that's actually the Trumps of the Bible, but it could be. It wouldn't surprise me if it was. I know that God put that man in office because that's the only way he could do what he's done and still be standing and go through what he's been through and still be standing. I mean, everything they've thrown at the man has fallen short, just rolled right off his back. Would have destroyed anybody else. Anybody else's career would be long since been over. But him, It just goes right through him like it's nothing. Because that which God puts up, no man can tear asunder. And no man has been able to, even though they've tried desperately. Cannot spell triumph without the letter Trump. Yeah, that's true. Phone call, burb. The one thing I know for certain is that time is steady ticking, and that sooner or later, regardless of how we try in vain, we're going to come to the end. Just like every day eventually comes to an end. Just like every time you think, man, there's not enough hours in the day. It's already 8 o'clock. It's already time to start broadcasting. Jesus, I just got comfortable. Doesn't matter. Slowly but surely, 1 second at a time, time ticks down. And eventually will stop. And when it stops, all things will be different. And there's nothing anybody can do to stop it. There's nothing anybody can do to change it. It's been set in motion since the beginning of time. The plan has always been the same. We've been through some ups and downs along the way, but the end result has always been the same. And that's where we're going to be with God, or we're going to be among those that get destroyed. Hopefully not, though. Hopefully we're doing enough to keep from that fate. I, for one, personally believe it's easier not to be destroyed than it is to be destroyed, because I don't think God wants to destroy his own creation. He refers to us as his children. I know I wouldn't destroy my children no matter what they did. So I kind of feel like he feels the same way. So I think a lot of it is fear tactics to keep us from doing wrong. I don't think there's hellfire and brimstone. I don't think hell as we're taught it even exists. I think there is a place, a physical place on earth, in the depths of the earth, that is called hell, where the devil is and the fallen angels are. I don't think people go there. I think you can be sent there if you're bad enough, but I don't think people as a rule go there. I think Abraham's bosom is in the same location, but it's separated by a gulf, meaning you can see it, but you can't communicate, you can't touch it. So I think people go to Abraham's bosom. I don't think they go to hell. I think that's to house the fallen angels and Satan. There is another place that's going to appear in the end times called the lake of fire. And it's probably going to be in the Middle East somewhere. A big hole's going to open up and there'll be a lava pit there. And that's where all the souls that follow Satan will be cast into and burn up like fat on a flame. It just ceases to exist. That is what I think hell is. That's my personal belief. I don't know that that's true, but the hellfire and brimstone that's preached in churches, that fear tactic, I don't think that's the truth. I think the truth is, at the end time when you're judged, you either follow God or you follow Satan. And if you follow Satan, he destroys you. You cease to exist. Death of the spirit, the second death. Meaning you're not here anymore. Everyone else gets to live on forever with God. Yes, there is. It's called Alabama. Well, some like Alabama. It is the only place still brave enough to wave the rebel flag. That's got to mean something. Trump, Trump, Trump. Beware of the three Trumps. Yep. So that's my philosophy and my thoughts on heaven and hell anyway. And there is some backing up by the Bible too. I don't know where they got the whole hellfire and brimstone thing, the devil with the long handles and the pitchfork. I don't think that that's real. I don't know where they got that idea, but it's not in the Bible. Matter of fact, the devil in the Bible works alongside of God, can go to heaven anytime he wants to, and walk right up to the throne, and nobody stops him. Why is that? because he's supposed to be there. He has a job to do, and his job is to tempt and to deceive. He's the prince of all things on this earth. He owns this earth and everything in it. The airwaves, the music, the TV shows, the movies, the books. He owns it all. He's responsible for the 21st century and all of its technology. He was probably there when they invented the iPhone. That's the devil. He's not this scary monster that when you see him, you're in terror. As a matter of fact, if you saw him, you'd probably think he was beautiful. And you'd probably marvel after him. You'd probably take a lot of discernment and a lot of wisdom to know that you were in the presence of the Dark One and to know to get away from him. And the reason I know that, or think that, is because the Bible says that God gave Lucifer the full package, gave him everything, gave him all the gifts and all the beauty and all the strength that a man can have or that a being can have. He was among the most beautiful and the most talented of all the angels. And his pride got the better of him. So I would imagine that if you saw Satan, you'd probably think he was the most beautiful thing you'd ever seen. Beware of beauty, because behind beauty is usually a black widow spider. You can have beauty or you can have integrity, but rarely do those come in the same package. Most of the time they don't. I mean, look at me. I'm an integral mofo. I got integrals all over me. If you know what I'm saying. Amen. Thank you. So watch out for that beauty stuff. Anything that's too good to be true probably is. That's what my mama told me, and I believed her. I have a beautiful soul. Isn't that sweet? Are you saying I got an ugly exterior? It's not ugly, it's character. You saying I got a face only a mama can love? I got a face for radio? I didn't say I was. You did. I do have a face for radio, though. Definitely not leading man material. That's all right. Oh, isn't that sweet? No, I'm just teasing with you. I know you didn't say that. I insinuated it as a joke. I am a leader. About 2 liters. Yes, Jake needs a hug. Always. If I die before I wake, feed Jake. That's all I'm saying. Two liters of Mountain Dew. They say you are what you eat. I'm surprised I'm not green. So, anybody got any other questions about Matthew? Because we're closing the book on Matthew. And next Monday, we're going to start Mark. See how far we can get into that. I started to start on it tonight, but we were close enough to 10 o'clock. I said we just might as well wait till next Monday, because if I get into it, I'm going to want to read more than 2 chapters before 10 o'clock gets here. Maybe we can get through that book in one podcast. I don't know, though. Matthew marks the spot. Yes, it does. Nobody's ugly in our family, and if we are, it's because we get pushed to make ourselves ugly. I don't like that. I'm not worried about it. I stopped trying to go past any beauty contest a long time ago. I'm in character building phase now. Trying to build up some character. Be worthy of something. Vanity has never been my strong suit. Probably a good thing, too, because if I were 6 feet tall and beautiful, I'd be ruling the world right now, and not in a good way. And you can believe that. Because I know how to manipulate people. It's part of my craft. And the one thing that manipulates people more than anything is 6 feet tall, beautiful people. Pizza, cheesecake, beer, football, the 4 major food groups. I agree. And I don't even like football. I don't drink beer either. But cheesecake and pizza I can get behind. I'll put up with beer and football to get some of that. Amen. Everybody gets old. And when you start getting old, you start losing your grip on youth. You start seeing that there's other things in life to worry about besides vanity. Probably because you have no choice but to see it, but either way, that's when you begin to see it. Young people can't see it. And the young people of today are missing some things that we have instilled in us when we were children. I'm not exactly sure how that is. It's not lack of parenting, because I did the same things my parents did as far as, trying to instill the Word of God and pray and bring my children up in a godly manner. And it just didn't stick. They don't seem to have the same kind of ambition that we had, the same kind of get up and go that we had. And I think that's just a mark of the times. I think that's just every generation seems to be going downward in a trend, Like we weren't as strong or as capable as the people who went through the World War, We weren't as savvy as they were. They were way tougher than we'll ever be. They were the greatest generation. But then there was the baby boomers, and then there was us, born to the baby boomers. And we lacked some of the qualities they had. And our children lack some of the qualities we have. And I think it just keeps going downhill like that. And I think that's the reason for a lot of the confusion that's happening on Earth right now. A lot of the, what I'm talking about. That didn't exist when we were kids, and if it did exist, it was kept well secret. Be careful, Darlene and I are still young. I agree. But I do think that things tend towards the bottom. And I wish there was a way around that, but I don't think there is. I think that is the nature of mankind. I think that's why the Bible is confident in saying that there'll come a time when sons turn against fathers and daughters against mothers and brothers against brothers and that sort of thing. That means that the family dynamic will no longer be intact. That family pride won't be there. And I think that bond, that strength of a family is something that we had before, but doesn't carry on into the future. That's just another one of those things that gets lost. The ambition, integrity that we had, our children won't have. Mainly because they don't have anything to aspire to. Mainly because there's nothing in the future for them. You can see that there's nothing in the future for them. Where there was something in the future for us, we had the American dream. We were taught that we could be anything we wanted to be. If we worked hard enough, pulled ourselves up by the bootstraps, we could make ourselves a life. And it was possible. It's no longer possible. There's not enough money to make. You can't make enough money to survive. Not in buy a home, not in start a family, you know. So I think the kids of this generation have got a hard road to hoe. A lot harder than what we had. They got a lot more garbage in the way, too. A lot more to confuse them and trip them up. Stumbling blocks, as it were. And I hope they can find a way around that, but I don't think they can. That's how come I know the end is so near, because it can't go much further like this. It's going to come to a point where nothing can go forward, you know, where no one can prosper. Like maybe their kids' might not even be able to function in the world, you know, if things keep going in the same order. If their kids are born with less ambition and possibility than they were born with, which is less than what we were born with, which is less than what our parents were born with, you begin to see how that trends downward to the bottom. And once you get to the bottom, there's nowhere else to go. So if you just look backwards and see how far we've fallen, you can see how much further we have to fall by looking forwards. Can't be much longer. So if you're in the mood, you need to get prepared and prep yourself for God right now. Get right with Him, get your mind straight, get your heart in the right place, get your spirit covered, put on the armor of God, and be ready. Because it's coming. It may not be tomorrow, but it's coming. Believe it. I know I hate that for my grandkids. I just will do my best to protect and hope that it's just go to sleep and then wake up with God and our babies. Yeah. You may or may not have to suffer a little, but that's exactly the way it'll be. When you go to sleep for the last time, when you close your eyes, the next time they open, you will be in the presence of God. But you needn't think that you're going to get out of this thing, unscathed, because it is appointed to the people in that generation to go through the tribulations. They have to suffer. They have to be in the midst of all of the struggles, because that is the test, as it were. And we have to pass it. Because if we don't pass it, God's going to destroy everything again. And I think we'll pass it. I think there's too many of us that are bound and determined to be with God that we're not going to do anything to jeopardize that possibility. So I don't think you have to worry about that. But if the tribulation begins in our lifetime, you can be sure you will endure some of it. But rest assured it'll only last 7.5 months, so you'll be fine. Just hunker down and learn how to do some trading if you get hungry. I've waited out 7 months in my bed before, so you can do it. I promise. Okay, y'all, it's 10 o'clock. Let me do the thing one more time. Please do like, subscribe, share, hit the bell icon, follow the links in the description. Leave a comment. Let me know what you're thinking. Tell me a good joke or turn me on to a book you've read that I haven't. And if you'd like to support the ministry, go to paypal.me/JakeJohnsonBand. Thank you. And with that, I'm going to say I bid you adieu, and I will see you on Wednesday to rock out. Hopefully. I love you guys. Thank you for hanging out with me. Have a great night. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed the show. And peace out.